Hey folks, Mel the Train Tutor back in the studio and back with another Let's Make for you. Yes, we're back in the Let's Make playlist and we're working on volcanic terrain. And we're stepping it up from where we did have volcanic rocks, and now we're tackling something not above the ground, but below it. Specifically, cracks and fissures. Now, it can be quite challenging when you make tables and volcanic terrain because you've got a flat surface, and unless you're using a printed colour mat, it can be quite dark. So we're going to be looking at a few techniques to make some simple low-lying scatter pieces, that you can put down with cracks in and lava and fissures and get that volcanic look. And in this video, what we're going to do is focus on low-level terrain and making sure it doesn't warp and that sort of stuff. And then the second thing is simple lava techniques. So if this sounds of interest to you and you're ready to level up your volcanic terrain, it's cracking on time. Come on. Now there's two types of fissures we're going to make, small and relatively larger ones, but for the small ones, what we're going to do is we're going to use my favourite, Daz. It's an air drying clay, and I've got a back to basics on it, so I'll throw a link up now. And this is it. Basically, I've just taken a chunk out, rolled it roughly like this, and down here I've got an old cutting mat. Now the reason I've got an old cutting mat is I want to put these down, spread them out, and then once they're dry, lift them off cleanly. So an old cutting mat works perfectly for that. On top of that, plastic sheets, anything impervious works really well. Now the other thing that you've got to be careful of is that you don't put a wet bottom on it, because when you slap it down, it's going to end up sticking. So Daz doesn't really stick to things that well if it's pushed against them dry. So we're going to use that to our advantage. And what I've got is I've taken a chunk of Daz out and rolled it into a little sausage, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down, and just flatten it like that, and get a rough sort of strip. Once I've got the rough sort of strip, I'm going to start pushing at the edges, and get a bit of a bevel to them. Just like that. Now once you've got the rough sort of strip, because these small fissures, what we want is we want to be able to lay them down on the table just as little scatter terrain, maybe break things up, without them sort of impeding gameplay. Now once you've got them roughly like that, you want a little bit of water, just wet your fingers, just give it a little play, and just smooth things out. Now as long as there isn't water underneath, it won't stick, so you're perfectly fine. And you can give it a good rub, flatten it down a bit more. Now the edges you don't have to get perfect, because we're going to just give those a little sand and trim them up afterwards. The main thing is you get the bulk right. And that's as nice and slidey as we need it. So we've got our rough shape for our fissure. All I need to do now is just crack on and just make some more, and then we'll come back and we'll start adding the fissure. So there's our riff pieces all smoothed out, and I've got them roughly to 5mm with a reasonable edge around them. They're all about 3 to 4 inches long. Now obviously, we need to make our fissures, and for this it's back to the old sculpting tools. Now all you need is a bit of water to make sure your tools don't stick and it's all slippy and slidey. And all you're going to do is come in, down the bottom, and just raggedy scrape it open. Now don't worry about lifting the edges or any of the actual sort of messiness in it, because that can be smoothed out, sanded out. What you want is the actual fissure, but you don't want to go too far deep that you actually go right through to the bottom. Otherwise it's going to be a hole, not a fissure. So that's all there is to it. Now you can sort of make cracks and that sort of stuff. And with a wet finger, come in, smooth that edge down, smooth that edge down, and it's pretty much good to go. Once you've got things smooth, you can come along, use the flattening edge, just like that, just to get your sort of fissure. Smooth it down again. And that's going to sort of like create a lip effect where it'll sort of curve over. So pushing it up raises it, smooth it down over there, gives you a nice sort of lip effect. Now, thing with this is just to accept it as it is, and not play too much with it like I'm doing. So, with that one done, all I've got to do is do the rest now. And there we go. There's all our pieces done, and they're looking good. Yeah, you've got to sort of avoid overplaying with them. Because I do like to play. I do, you know. Anyway, we're going to leave these to dry, yeah, and then we're going to come back when they are. Now, our Dad's fissures have dried, so come on down. Now, here you've got them. Yeah, I popped them all off the sheet. Yeah, and as you can see, yeah, lovely fissures. Yeah, there you go. Short up. Yeah. Now, you'll notice a couple of things with them. Yeah, the edges are kind of raggedy a bit and a bit thin. And also, there's a couple of them where there's just a very slight raising of the lip. A little bit of warping. Yeah, now, the way to deal with this, dead simple. You're going to get a bit of tissue paper, no, a bit of sandpaper. Yeah, to get rid of the raise, put it on and just sort of rub it backwards and forwards like that. A bit hard to hold this one. There you go. There you go. And then when you take it off, it'll sit flat. Yeah, the other thing, because you're just flattening the lip at the bottom. The other thing is these edges, all you need to do is, and this is going to be a bit messy, yeah, it's basically just give them a quick sand, because the thin, they will sand. Yeah, and this is just so they don't chip or when you're working with them and playing with them. Yeah, if you thicken the edge up a little bit, they'll be perfectly fine. Now, with that done, yeah, we very quickly take the edge off that, because that edge is raised up a little. There we go. Perfect. Now, with that done, the last thing that we need to do is just add a little bit more texture to this. And I don't want to add much. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got some PVA. It's been watered down, 1 part PVA to 4 parts water. I'm just going to literally brush it on the whole piece. Yeah, a little bit more. Now this will soak into the DAS because the DAS is porous. And then I'm just going to get basically some mixed aggregates. Yeah, some nice sharp sand and a couple of little things that are a bit better. And then just over here, save it going everywhere, give it a sprinkle. There you go. And that's all there is to it. And that'll give it enough texture so we can dry brush it up and it'll look great. Right, we'll throw that back on there to dry. And we'll get cracked on with the rest. So the texturing on our little Dad's fissures is all done. And they're lovely. There you go. Yeah, there's a little bit of rising on a couple of them. Yeah, I can sand those down, or I can just give the bottom a coat of PVA and that'll pull them a little bit straight if I need to. But other than that, I'm really happy with them. Now, these are done, but these are quite small fissures. What happens if you want larger fissures? You know, proper cracks in the ground. Well, with that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to make some larger fissures. Yeah, and so, give me a second, let me get set up, I'll be back in a flash. Now with our smaller fissures all sealing and drying up, yeah, it's time to work on our larger fissures. And for that, we're not using DAS, we're going to use Watchclip foam board. Now this is 5mm foam board, so it's polystyrene, yeah, with cardboard either side. Yeah, commonly called foam board, but also called mountain board. Now what you can see here is I have been a busy beaver. I've been doing some drawings. Okay, and what we've got here is basically just some rough cracks. Okay, so I've drawn some cracks and then I've just gone roughly round them. Yeah, sort of roughly 1 centimetre, and that's going to be the top. Yeah, and then I've drawn the rough shape of the actual scatter piece that I want. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut these out. Okay, and then I'm going to bevel this edge and then cut out this middle bit. All right, so cracking on time. So that's the rough cut done. Time to bevel the edges. Now, before I bevel the edges, what I want to do is just cut out my crack. Now, I'm not going to try and cut it all the way through. Yeah, all I'm going to do is cut the cardboard around the general area. And I'm going to be a bit raggedy with this. Yeah, I've got a slight angle on, so I'm beveling slightly inwards. Yeah, and I'm just giving it a good rag, but making sure that my blade doesn't go the whole way through. Now don't worry about your edges being clean, it's a crack in the ground. Now with that done, yeah, I'm going to go get something that I can pick it out with and just get in there. Yeah, remove that and just start scraping this down. This is only foam. The reason I'm scraping, yeah, is there's cardboard at the bottom. Yeah, so if I carry on cutting, I'll go through the cardboard. But if I scrape and I push down, I'm just compressing the foam, which means I can sort of tear chunks of the foam out with it without sort of going straight through the bottom. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, like that. And back around here. That's it, just there. Yeah, there we go. Now, the reason I've scraped is if I bring it up, do you see that texture on the inside? Yeah. Now what we need to do is to create our bevel. And you've got to watch your fingers on this one. Okay, sharp blade, keep your fingers well away from it. Bring it to the edge and start taking off the edge around the side. Now I'm sort of cutting halfway between the foam here. So I'm not cutting the bottom card, I'm just cutting the top foam. With the bevel done, it's just time to just give the edges a nice little bit of a clean up. Yeah, just so they're not too thin. If you've gone too thin anywhere, yeah, just nip it back so you've got at least a mil or two around the edge. So there we are now. And then finally, sandpaper. Because it's polystyrene in the middle, it can be sanded just like normal polystyrene, which means you can get a really nice bevel on it. With that done, we're at that stage, and you're good to go at this stage. Another thing you can do is just with a sculpting tool, just rag the edges a bit. And there you go, all done. Looking very fishier. I could have pulled this back and made it a little tighter, but I want to make sure it's sturdy. Now my next thing is, I've got a couple more of these to do, so I'm going to get cracked on with those. I'll come back once they are. So that's our larger fissures shaped out, and they've come out really nice. Now that was our first one. Yeah, pretty plain and simple. Then stepped it up with that one and made it a little bit more jaggedy. The other thing is I sort of pulled back the edges on this so there's less space. Yeah, so it's a lot nicer. It looks more like a wren, but it's a bit too wavy. So on the third, yeah, I went for something a little bit more erratic. And remember, when you're doing multiple pieces, you get better over time. So don't worry about, do a few and even keep the first one just as a test piece. Yeah, not for the set, so you can practice your techniques. It's dead easy, but we get to this stage. So there we are now. Now the thing is, these are still a little bit fluffy. Yeah, and a little bit, I don't want to bend them, but they're a bit bendy. So we need to firm them up. And for that, I've got Artex, which is the sealing stucco in the UK. Yeah, you can use any sort of normal wall filler or spackle. I'm just using this because it hardens up a little bit more and I like it. Yeah, so we're going to get a good dollop on our finger. And then what we're going to do is give these a really good fingering. Yeah, so get it on your fingers, rub it in all over the piece. Yeah, down the sides, work both sides. Yeah, getting those nice and slippy, nice and coated. And then once you have, you go straight and go into the middle. You don't need to put much in the middle. Yeah, you just want to put enough that it sort of firms it a little. Yeah, and hardens it for painting. It'll just make it easier. Yeah, mainly around the actual centre of the crack. And just work it in really good round there. And that's all there is to it. Now the next thing I need to do is just quickly do these pieces. So that's them all done, and all we've got to do now is just leave them to dry, and then we're going to texture them up in the same way that we did our little Daz fissures. Okay? Now with the texturing done, they're all good and ready to go painting. Now they're still pretty lightweight, got no warping issues. I could mount them on a bit of plastic card if I wanted, or even some 3mm MDF at this point. Yeah, just to sturdy them up if you wanted to, but these are good enough. And as you can see, that's a great crevice. Now, with those done, I've got them at the same stage as the DAS Fissures that we did earlier. So my next stage is I'm going to be doing a bit of painting up. So, let me get set up. Now we've got all our pieces here ready for painting up, and I've got my standard sort of volcanic black here. Now what this is it's mainly artistic watercolour black acrylic, nice and thick, a little bit of grey house paint, and a touch of PVA just to bond it together and give it a really good coat. And all we've got to do now is just paint these up. So I'm just going to get my brush, yeah, and I'm just going to basically put a base coat on it. This will help seal all this texture in place and provide the base coat for when we go to dry brush it up to give it a bit more of a volcanic look. Yeah, now it isn't black. It's very close to black, but it isn't. It's just off it with a touch of grey. Now this is all you need to do. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and just brush it on. And it won't take long for it to be good to go. What I want you to do is actually paint the crack on this one, because it does actually come in with sealing it. Yeah, so I'm going to get cracked on with painting these up. And I'll bring them back when they're done. So all our pieces are nice and blacked up. There's a couple of little odd little white spots, but they'll get cleaned up in the next stage. Now the next stage that we need to do is put a basic volcanic ground on it, which is basically dark grey. What I've got here is I've got a bit of my standard grey, which is this stuff, mixed with a bit of black. Yeah, and all we're going to do to start off with is a bit of overbrushing. Yeah. So this is taking this from looking like this, and just basically lightening the tone. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to overbrush these. Yeah, initially all of them, then I'm going to dry brush them just with that, which is my darkest grey. Yeah, and that will be my highlight for this piece. Now once I've done that, or as I do that, one of the other things that I'm going to do is I'm going to watercolour it. I'm going to go into this crack here with a smaller brush, and I'm going to put light grey in there. Yeah, the reason we're doing that is we're going to be putting our sort of glowy effects in there. And so I want to make sure that when we put those in, yeah, I've got a nice lighter base to sort of go off. So that's that done. Yeah, and all I'm going to do now is just carry on and just dry brush these up and get them looking great and get that centre sort of line in. So all our pieces are dry brushed up. As you can see, if you can see, they're looking great. Yeah. Now it's important when you're doing these pieces that when you're dry brushing and that sort of stuff, you do all your set together. Otherwise, you're going to get slight variations between one little set or another set. The other way to deal with this is simply pre-mix your base and have enough of it to do an entire set. Yeah. So if you're mixing, always have enough to do the entire set so you can maintain the colour across the set. Or you're going to get variations between things and it just isn't going to work out properly. Now, with all our stuff greyed up and looking great, yeah, it's time to start lavering up these cracks. Now, to do this, I'm using Army Painter paints, yeah, because they've got a really good pigment on them. And I've got a selection here. Dragon Red, Blood Red, Pure Red, Lava Orange. I've gone for a Demonic Yellow, a little bit mustardy there. Yeah, but it's got a good pigment on it, and then a bit of white. Now, I'm probably not going to use all of these on these because these are the full spectrum for lava effects. Yeah, I'm probably just going to use a couple of reds and a bit of the orange just to get that sort of fissure sort of look going. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to take our base, yeah, which is the, let me put these up. No, this one, yeah, this bit here, and we're just going to sort of give it a red base. And as I'm doing this, I'm just giving the edges a slight overbrush. It's going to be messy. Yeah, but that's okay. You're not looking for a total watercolour. You're not looking for a total covering. You want a bit of the dark showing through, to be truthful, because that's going to give you a bit of a texture. And where we scraped it, you'll start to see that it has got a bit of a rough texture. That's what we're going to be using for overbrushing and bringing up our sort of more lava effects. So, what I'm going to do, a bit much there. If you do go over, just smudge it with your finger. Yeah, I'm going to carry on doing these. I just want to do this one so I can show you what I'm doing on one of the smaller fishes as well before we sort of jump ahead. So that's my basin, and you can sort of see already, you can see where this is going. It's looking beautiful. Now if we're coming on to these sort of things, when you're doing these, it's really important you go little, you just build it up. Yeah, if you put too much on your brush, yeah, then what you are definitely going to do is you're going to put a large blob as you go in on the side, and it's going to be hard to hide. So tiny little amounts for this, and a couple of layers. Yeah, so when I'm taking my paint, I'm actually taking it from where I've smeared it off doing there, rather than the blob itself. Also, make sure you flip it round. Yeah. So you get both sides. And you should end up with something that looks like that. And you can already see where this is going. It's going beautiful. I love this stuff. I do really like this stuff, you know, guys. I've missed it. Right, anyway. Right, it is cracking on time. Bosicle's got to do some lava. So I'll do these, yeah, and then once they're dry, we'll bring them back. I'll show you a bit of overbrushing techniques, and we should have nailed it by then. Right, cracking on time. So we've got our overbrushed red layer on, and as you can see, it's already looking great. Yeah, and it really makes these pieces pop, just having a bit of contrast, taking them up from that sort of boring grey. Now what I've got is, I've got a bit of that lava orange, and I've got a bit of that demonic yellow, all nice and mixed, so they're a real rich pigment. What we're going to do is dead simple. Now I'm going to have to show you sort of live as I go on this one, because it's a working technique. We're basically going to layer on some of the orange, yeah, in various spots irregularly, picking up on some of the sort of top sort of highlighted bits. Yeah, maybe give a little smidge around the edge. And then while it's still wet, we're going to use a separate brush, come in with the yellow, and we're just going to put some spots in. The reason we're doing it like this is because I don't want this to be like a volcano. Yeah, these are fissures with a little bit of glowing. We've got more lava pieces coming, which will be brighter. And so on those, I'm going to take it up through the yellow and even to the hottest white. But on these, I want the sort of little ground effects. Yeah, and it's the same with these. There isn't really the room to make these super glowy. So we're just going to touch them up. Now, it's dead simple. All I'm going to do is wide sort of flat-headed brush. Yeah, I'm going to get some of my orange on, and I'm going to sort of smidge it in like this. Yeah, you'll notice I'm using the sort of straight edge of the brush to sort of drop it in and leave gaps at the same time. Yeah, now I'm dropping it in enough sort of volume that it is actually quite bright, and it is sort of quite thick in places, and in other places it ain't. Yeah, a bit like me. Yeah, now the reason I'm doing this is because I need enough paint on there to be able to wet blend with the yellow. So, orange brush down. Yeah, get into my yellow pigment. And all we're going to do with the yellow pigment is pick sort of highlights. Yeah. And sort of start brushing them in. Yeah. And it is just, because it's mixed, you need to get a decent amount. That's it. And then scrape off the excess and just start wet blending. Which just basically means just touching around the edge. As you go around the edge and everything, what you'll find is as you wet blend, yeah, it'll start to sort of get orangey on the brush, which will make it a lot easier. Always remember, yeah, you can bring little bits up to the edge, cover sort of like, you know, the edge of the rock and that sort of stuff. Really easy. Come in with a little bit more pure yellow, do a couple of tiny little spots to bring up some of these spaces. Yeah, and then with that done, all we're going to do next is get this orange, and we'll just put a little bit more around this edge. Just bring that up a bit. Yeah, I'm trying to be really, really gentle on this one. Yeah. If you do spot as you go any little white spots or stuff like that, a little thin down red around here, that'll work great. And there you go. And there's our lava effect. Yeah. It's as simple as that. The key thing is we can get a great lava effect here because, yeah, we're working with a really undulated texture that has that lava look. You put little yellow streaks, that sort of stuff, you can play with it. Yeah, but above all, it's really simple to get lava. Now, the next thing I need to do is very much replicate this sort of process on these and the rest of them. Yeah, and just to show you one of the little Daz fissures, yeah, we'll go in and I'm just going to go dab, 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 right down the middle. Yeah, so you can see that little line there. Yeah, and then with my yellow, I'm not going to do much yellow on this at all. Yeah, I'm going to go dab, 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 dab. Oh, a little bit on the side there. Yeah, let's just give that a bit of a... And there you go. It's as simple as that. Now all I've got to do is carry on that process all along all of these. So, it's cracking on time. And so with a little bit of dabbling, they've come out beautiful. Just look at that. Okay, now it is done with, like I said, a very rough, quick and easy wet blending technique. And the thing to take away from this is when you're doing lava techniques for terrain, most of the time when you see lava, you actually see it on miniature bases, and it's done by incredibly professional painters, and it looks beautiful and it's blended and that sort of stuff. They're designed to look at like this and to win competitions. Terrain, when you're looking down at the tabletop, yeah, you don't have to go, pardon me, you don't have to go anywhere near that depth, okay? So don't worry about trying to match that sort of standard. Simple rough blending produces awesome results, as you can see, yeah? And that is just a matter of those three colours. Base with one over a dark base coat, yeah? Lay it, overbrush with an orange and wet blend in a yellow. Yeah, we've got that one. Yeah, and obviously all our little cracks have come out beautiful. Yeah, so these are going to make lovely little what you call hazard sort of points and points of interest. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to take you through with regards to building them. Obviously, this has been about, one, showing you the basic lava techniques, two, showing you how to make very low-level terrain. Now, these aren't backed. If I was going to be using these in a club or using them in something more heavy, I would plasticard back these with 1mm plasticard. Now, a couple of other things, same with these. I'd probably pull this flat area around the pieces back a bit and just reduce them in size. Back them with plasticard or 3mm MDF in the case of these. Now, when you're doing Daz, you can have some challenges with warping. If you do make these and you have challenges with warping, then one of the tricks you can do to avoid it in the future is you can get a damp cloth. And if when the pieces have just been sort of fresh Daz and they're drying, if you just drape a damp cloth over it, that will help prevent the warping. And the reason that works is quite simple. What happens is when these pieces dry, yeah, the bottom is sealed to the table, which contains the moisture. The top is open to the air, so it dries first and it lifts the edges up. By putting a damp towel over the top, yeah, you even out the drying, and then that way you don't get the lift. And remember, if you do get a little lift, you can rub it on some sandpaper and then back it on plasticard. Above all, remember these things have got to be durable. The Let's Makes are about showing you the basic techniques for getting these done. And they look beautiful, guys. Now, as always, this has been a leveling up. As we work through the Let's Make series, we're introducing new things. We'll be going on to lava pools next, volcanoes after that, and we're stepping up until we make a nice end feature piece. And so you need to take these sort of skills in the videos, the information from these videos, to really sort of pull off the fancy stuff at the end. So, thanks for sticking with me, and I'd like to thank you for sticking with me and being one of my sort of loyal watchers. As always, yeah, if you've liked the video, the only reason I'm in here is because of you guys, yeah? So I do need your support with regrowing the channel after coming back from being ill. And things are going well, but I can't do it without you guys who watched to the end and really appreciate the video. So there are links down below to Patreon and PayPal. Yeah, Patreon, you can just pledge $1, $1 a video. Yeah, it's less than a coffee nowadays, but it will help me keep the lights on, the cameras rolling, and in here producing content. If you're not into a monthly commitment thing, then there's PayPal or the wish list, and you can just send a one-off. It all helps keep this content coming. And in the meantime, guys, hope you're looking forward to the lava pools. They're coming up soon. All the best, yeah? Ta-da.